Yo, 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 we are back. We are back. We are back. Unconformed Podcast. This is your boy Ryan Thomas. And, oh, never mind. We don't say names no more, do we? Okay. What up, Darius?
I'm in here.
Hey, man, that's what happened when we try to switch up and I do the introduction, man. How you been, though?
Straight.
Cool, man. And, I wanted to let everybody know something, man. I've been doing refereeing for varsity high school football games, man.
Boy, they gonna cuss you out, bro.
Listen, it's a beast, man. Let me tell you something about being a referee, bro. Not only are you're supposed to watch an entire side of the field. You can't miss no blocks. You better not let nobody jump off sides. You better not miss no clip blocks in the back. You better be on point, bro, because it looked like they running slow, bro, but they're running very fast at you, bro. And then if you miss them, that coach is right there, bro. You're right beside you. And your job is to look straight ahead and when necessary, answer quickly. They weren't set. Turn back around. He didn't jump off sides. Turn back around. That's intense, bro.
Yeah, I feel like refereeing is just like it's just a job you don't want. It's like, it's like a kicker or like a center playing
like being a punching bag.
Well, no. I mean, like it's like a center playing football or a kicker. Like, you got one job, do your job. Like, and it only matters. It literally only matters when you don't do your job. Nobody's like,
that's when it matters.
It's like, man, good job officiating today. No, that don't happen. It's like, bro, it's like you trash. Like, that's the only time they care.
You missed that big call where somebody scores a touchdown and you didn't see something. Oh, you'll hear the parents in the crowd, bro. They'll be yelling at you.
Oh no, that's 100%.
Like I'm just gonna say, huh? Yeah. What do you need?
and it's like it's so funny just because like I'm a school counselor and I always like just like in different places in the school and whatnot, and like I go to PE every once in a while and like. You'll see kids playing kickball against each other, and like the PE coach is like the referee or whatever, and then the kids be like, "You cheating?"
That's right.
And the PE teacher like, "Why am I cheating? Like, what reason do I have to cheat?" But it's like it's ingrained in us.
When you're
injustice,
losing,
injustice is gonna occur, and this is why.
That's right. It's funny. I called a touchdown one game. And the kid, because he was right down the corner of the end zone, so it was kind of close. But he inside the pylon, I called a touchdown. Kid ran up in my face. He was out of bounds. What do you do when the person screams in your face, bro? Your reaction.
Did you throw a flag?
No, I didn't throw a flag on him because it was just emotion, But your reaction in real life would be to respond. But as a ref, you just gotta stand there or like, try to calm him down or whatever. So it's teaching me patience, bro. That's all I'm gonna say.
I feel that, and I feel like what I'm saying. I feel like referees and officials, like any people like that, like it only matters when you fail, when you don't do right. And it's kind of like honestly similar to like churches. Like nobody like cares when like a church is flourishing. Nobody cares like when the church is doing well. Nobody cares like when the church is doing what they're supposed to be doing. Oftentimes people only care, right, wrong, or different. People only care when there's controversy. That's just what makes the headlines a lot of times with churches. You never hear about, or you hardly ever hear about, this church is doing this thing good. This church has been doing good for 15 years. This church hadn't had a known scandal since it's been birthed.
Right. And
it's just funny that like that's the way that we operate as a society. But I think that like there's some validity to that. Like if my kid got it, like I know if I had a kid and like they lost a football game, that I know they've been working at, they've been working this whole time. They're going to training, they're doing the 2-a-days, they're doing all these things. And then it comes down to like a bad call. And I know that my kid's going to be distraught. I can see why somebody would redirect their anger towards
the ref,
because that's the easy target. Right. So like, I can see both ends of the token. And like, kind of like along the same lines, like when you talk about like things like that going into church hurt, even like things that like even what's the word I'm looking for, scandals in the church. Like it's easy to see why people have like so much hate, you could say, directed towards like some of those people in that. And even like that makes me just like think about the topic today. Where we're going to talk about celebrity.
Segue. Good segue.
Yeah. Yes. We talking about celebrity pastors. We talking about mega churches. We talking about secrets in the church. We talking about all these things. And what we'll use as kind of a guide is the movie Honk for Jesus.
Honk for Jesus.
What was the rest? Save Your Soul.
Save Your Soul.
That's right. Honk for Jesus, Save Your Soul. And that movie was, first of all, really well done. It is satirical. Mm-hmm. It's a satire movie. Yeah, so it is a satire movie. So like there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek things in the movie. Sterling K. Brown does star in it, as well as Regina Hall, who in my opinion carries the movie. Sterling K. Brown definitely did his thing. But Regina Hall she goated, man. I don't care what nobody say. Like she is goated. And
different kind of role for sure.
Yeah, and it's like she just got so much range as an actress. It's like you just like you've been doing this since Scary Movie. Like we gotta start giving this girl some credit, man, or this woman some credit. So like I was just super. This movie did a good job of explaining like a lot of hypocrisy that goes on in the church. It did a good job of talking about the mega church model and what may be problematic with it. And also did a good job of really just putting prosperity gospel on front and center and letting you deal with it. And what I will say about this movie, because some of you guys may want to watch it, there is sexual content in it that may make some people uncomfortable. So if you are one that doesn't like to watch movies with sexual content in it, then the movie may not be for you. But I think that this topic as a whole will be for you, and you won't have to watch the movie to know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. And then also we want to, according to what I read, which I didn't notice, I think, until today, the movie is loosely based upon the life of Bishop Eddie Long, who was caught up in a scandal and shortly after passed away. So I do want to say rest in peace to him. You know, this isn't about him, but it is broadly about kind of some of the things that happen in mega churches and like how that relates to things like Me Too and things of that nature. So, yeah. So let's jump in. Initial thoughts. I mean,
yeah. So to be clear, like this movie is kind of about like this pastor who's been making headlines for allegations of sexual misconduct, and then just like the lifestyle that he has, he has, his church has, bragging about the size of water fountains and things like that. But like ultimately, like this church has been on pause, I'm assuming, for a minute, and they're trying to have a grand opening for this church where they're 100% assured that like people will come back. People will come back to this church because we've been a staple of the community. We've done these things, and people generally like our stuff. We got the greatest production. We got great sound. And as they're doing all this, there's actually been like a documentary filmed on them the whole time. So it's super It's super interesting to watch. And in that, like my first thoughts was just like watching this from the perspective of the first lady of the church. Like I don't think a lot of times when things like this happen, you get to see things from the perspective of the first lady of the church. And I think that's kind of where I think the movie started to focus on the pastor, but like towards the end, like it was very clearly focused on the perspective of the first lady, and it ended definitely focusing on the perspective of the first lady. That's why I just say Regina Hall ate the whole movie. She ate Golden Corral, straight appetizers. So like I was really impressed with what they did and how they did it, and I think that they did make some valid points.
Yeah, no, most definitely, and I think it's interesting because they didn't spoil it. They didn't tell you what the scandal was that they were trying to bounce back from until like what 3/4 way through the movie.
Yeah, and it was definitely the end. Yeah, and it was hinted at a lot of times, like where you was kind of like, you can kind of get the hints and whatnot. So like that was definitely a thing, but like you did have to still like guess. You didn't know without any doubt that like this is what the scandal was. So and to be clear, like
at a certain point it became clear.
Yeah, so like, and it was basically like said that like this pastor was having sexual relations with like boys, teenagers, younger people,
young men. So it was just men, though, I think.
Yeah. So young men, and man, it was wild to watch it all like take place in like what they portrayed as real time.
Yeah, and like the theater of it, and what I like about satire most of the time is satire takes things and makes them exaggerated in a way that's almost like silly in order to make a point about it, where it like exploits something to the point where it's like, all right, like, everything is exaggerated. Like she baptized him and held him underwater for, 15 seconds. And then they came up, and when they were even getting baptized, it was like, I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, or something like that. And he was like, don't say Son, or don't say, I want you to say this. Do it again. So it's like everything is a show. There was literally nothing genuine about this. It was literally the show of like, neither one of them had any type of sincerity. And one issue I had when I was reading kind of some articles on it is that they were trying to present the First Lady as if she were a righteous woman dealing with an unrighteous man. And I was thinking like, no, that's not what I saw. I saw two people completely wrapped up in vanity and foolishness. Both of them, at least, Regina's character didn't. I mean, I'll just call her Regina because I don't know what the character's name. First Lady, she didn't show me anything that behind the scenes of like, I'm praying for him or crying out to God, or like, it was always just like her going along to get along. And I think ultimately it came back to bite her in the butt, where only one car shows up for their reopening. And I wish they would have showed what happened after that. But
see, I think that like, I don't know if I agree with that to some capacity. I think that like, yes, like she was definitely unrighteous in a lot of ways, but I think that like the whole time she was struggling with like, should I leave this man and can I leave this man? And I think a lot of times you do see that like in churches with scandals, like a lot of like you hardly ever hear about like first lady scandals. I'm sure it happens, but you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times like the onus is put on the first lady to stay with this person, forgive this person.
I think her mom even told her that in one scene.
Yeah,
right?
Her mom did, because she was kind of like begging for her mom to say it was okay to divorce in the midst of all these things, because that's ultimately what she wanted to do. But she like, played the role. And I'm sure like you could make the argument that like she had access to like the riches and wealth and all those things. So it was beneficial for her to play the role. But like she was also led in a way, she was led by him in a way that didn't point her to the gospel. I would say didn't like daily point her to the gospel. So what do you expect the end result to be? I mean, ultimately you are the pastor, and like this person's cheated on you, doesn't want any intimacy with you at all, because this person actually enjoys intimacy of males more than like women in general. And
he's very impatient with her.
Yeah, impatient and all those things. So
controlling.
Like,
don't wear that hat. I don't like that hat.
Yeah, put the paint on and do praise worship in the middle of the street, like,
which was funny. Funny. That was funny.
It was funny. I think it was funny in like some way, and I think like ultimately it was funny because like Regina Hall, like that, like that's what I'm talking about when I say she's so good. Like she's so good at that, but like she was still able to show. This hurts. This is the last thing that I want to do, but I'm gonna do it because this is what I'm supposed to do. And this is what this is what my leader, so to speak, told me to do. And I can say leader because that's like how her mom addressed it later on. So like, so it's one of those things where it was just super interesting. And I think that like I walked away with a few thoughts. I walked away with a few thoughts about this, like as it relates to everything else. I think that we live in a culture that like puts celebrity pastors on a pedestal. We want to get autographs from celebrity pastors. We rather listen to celebrity pastors. And when I say celebrity pastors, I mean pastors that you may follow on Instagram, social media. You may listen to their sermons. You may read their books often. And you have a certain type of admiration for them that you wouldn't have for, I mean, that in some cases you don't have for your own pastor, and you have a certain amount of admiration for their church than you do for your own, and how it becomes problematic. I can think about somebody asking Jackie Hill Perry via like Patreon, will you disciple me? And she said no, because I don't know you. I don't know you. And there's no authenticity that's taking place, like for me to like really get to know you, for this to actually be a thing, for this to actually like be beneficial. That's not discipleship. And I think that a lot of times, especially after COVID, where a lot of people did take advantage of like virtual church, virtual this, virtual that, that we've kind of lost that. And I think that celebrity pastoring is like one of those things that like kind of took off more so now than it has ever before. And it's just because of accessibility, but like how much we value that person, how much we value celebrities who are teachers and preachers and leaders, but these people aren't actually walking with us. These are not people that we can like go to and like, ask to pray for us about this. These are not people who can look into our life and see how we've grown or anything like that. And in like a lot of ways, like even in that church model, like these people don't do that with most of their congregation because they can't.
Because of the size.
Yeah.
And, I think definitely celebrity pastors, it's I want to be clear. It's nothing wrong with having a big church, a big congregation, nothing wrong with that. Like, that's the work of the Lord. God bless you, man. I love Tony Evans, I love people like that, but I do think that, I don't think that it's God's, and I don't even want to speak for God, so I'll take that back. I don't think it's always wise to, embrace the lifestyle of celebrity pastorism, because don't you have sheep that you should be caring for? Like, don't you have like other things that should be priority? I'm sure that there's people in prison you should be visiting, people in your congregation who need you. Why are you traveling the world? Shouldn't you be like making sure your sheep are not falling astray to the wolf that is trying to eat them? But at the same time, nothing wrong.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
And if you are traveling frequently, how much you can pay for these engagements, bro? In all honesty, like if I'm just keeping
$25,000 a pop, bro. Let's
like
go.
if your going rate is 10,000, which is probably more than that, and you do
probably
it
more
20 times a year, then that's pretty hefty. And like, let's be clear, like it's way more than that. But like, maybe that's where God called you to be, or maybe
look, who's maybe so, and that's why I'm trying to be as gentle as possible. Like, for instance, I know people that, and this is just a person who inspires me just because of his business acumen and his wisdom. They might not like him theologically, but TD Jakes, I think, does a great job of taking care of his church. Right? He takes care of the people in his church. But he's definitely like doing a whole lot of other things around the world. And so I feel like as long as your church is taken care of, then that's the main thing that matters to me, And so like with the old boy in the movie, even before he had the falling away issue with, getting caught up, you listen to the lack of substance in his sermons, man, and that was all mockery of the prosperity gospel. It's like, you see the car I drive? You see the suits I wear? Everybody just screaming, yeah. Well, you faithful to God. Then He will bless you with these suits and these cars. And it's just like, oh, that's such a satire. But at the same time, it's like, it's truth to it, and I think like a lot of the stuff, it seems like it's low hanging fruit in a way. But I think it builds up to the point where they're not trying to make this guy out to be somebody who was ever upstanding and righteous and good, who failed. Yeah, I do appreciate that distinction that they made.
Yeah, I think like kind of like along the same token, in some capacity, is like there was a scene where he was practicing his Easter speech because they were supposed to open on Easter, or Easter sermon. I'll say he was practicing in front of his wife, and she tells him it's not good enough. It needs to be better. You're a better speaker than this. And he's like, this is the best I got. And this is authentic. This is authentically me. At least from his vantage point, he felt like it was authentically him. And I think that like what it boils down to is that we value in American culture and probably in most cultures, but I'll only speak to American culture, and I'll only speak to evangelical culture for the most part, but I'll speak to American culture. But I think that we value, gifts more than we value authenticity. We value gifts more than we value authentic relationships with God. We value gifts more than we value one-on-one time. These people being above reproach. I say that just because like a lot of times, like a lot of people go to churches based on how well somebody speaks. How well can he portray this message? How charming is this person? They probably wouldn't use that word, but like that's the word I'm gonna use today. How charming is this person? And I think that like we so many times value gifts, and we forget that gifts can go to anybody. Gifts go to non-believers. Some people can speak in a way,
right.
like and like Ravi Zacharias, who was like one of the best apologetic preachers of all time, had a whole ministry named after him, and he was out here wilding the whole time. If people, I mean, I can't speak to his salvation, but like I know his life doesn't necessarily his private life doesn't bear the fruit of what I can see. If you don't know who Ravi Zacharias is, then you can Google him and whatnot. But like his gifts are so strong that we look the other way when this man owns 4 spa/massage parlors that he's going to frequently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
my heart still broke over that one, bro. Not even gonna lie.
Yeah, but it's the truth. And like whereas like it'll be a church it's probably a church somewhere about 20 people where this pastor has like more authentic relationships. He's given to the community. He's putting in time. He's doing everything that you would want your local pastor to do, but you feel like he doesn't possess the gift that you want this person to have. So I think that like that just made me like think about that a little bit more. So like I think that like I think Tim Keller was the first person who kind of said something along those lines. So like it's just funny to watch, and like ultimately like as we talk about like church cultures, especially mega church cultures, where you feel like you need to have somebody that's charismatic or you will not keep your congregation. So I just thought about that.
No, you 100% right, and it's definitely a thing, bro. And even like to tie in with the movie, the end where he's confronted by the guy that he molested, except he's older now. I don't even know how much older, but clearly he's much older than he was. Like my thought was like, by the
way, that scene made me think that dude was probably a teenager when it happened, because how young he looked, but how far removed it looked like he was from that situation. But go ahead.
Yeah, like maybe like a teenager when it happened, maybe like 14, somewhere in there. But like it made me think this is exactly what things like the Me Too movement was for. Like this is exactly what the Me Too movement was for. Now we do know that this happened before the Me Too movement with Bishop Eddie Long, but we did have a situation that happened here in Memphis a few years ago at a church, and I won't call no names, but a pastor got caught up in a very similar way that ended up getting him. He was actually the assistant pastor. It brought him down and the head pastor down, and, when it happened and the details began to come out, it was like, hey, this is exactly what the Me Too movement is for. It's to protect people or give people a voice who are powerless under someone who has a whole lot of power and influence, so that they won't be invisible. And it's also to warn people from this happening again. Like if you look at the movie, you remember when he was playing basketball with the guy in the gym?
Yeah, they started flirting with him.
He's ready to offering, bro.
Yeah, starting offering him stuff and like very subtle, but like, it's there.
Very obvious ways, right? So it's like he's already lining up he acting like he's repentant, ready to open the church back up. Meanwhile, you up here lining up your next victim. Nah, man, get this guy out of the paint, bro. Like this mug is unrepentant. He's ready to do it again. You know what I'm saying? That's exactly what the Me Too movement is for. Because if you don't stop him again, he's going to continue to destroy lives. You know what I'm saying? And so these are the times where I feel like, because I've had some thoughts about the Me Too movement kind of being abused and all that stuff, but this is not one of those times, bro. Like I feel like that is the perfect situation where a mug needs to be called out. I don't know how much it really impacted him when the old boy walked up to him. It seemed like it really didn't impact him at all. But I remember when he said, "I saved myself." It's like, what are you talking about? what are you talking about? That scene was so intense, man. But you didn't save yourself, bro. Jesus is the one that's supposed to be and save you, right? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah. And I think
it's so confusing.
And that's actually like goes into like another one of my points or questions involving this movie, because when he approached the pastor, first thing the first lady said was like, "Hey, don't forget about your NDA. Don't forget about the NDA that you signed." You know what I'm saying?
Hear that.
So like in that, like, is there like, do you think there's a place for NDAs in the church? Non-disclosure agreements, which basically says I'm not going to speak on this incident because we've come to some kind of settlement. It may be a financial settlement. It's a settlement. We'll just call it a settlement, but more oftentimes than not, it's a financial settlement. So do you think that there's room for NDAs in the church?
Wow, that is a great question, bro. That is a great question. Okay, so the scenario would be like, let's say the church had paid him like, $50,000. And in that way, they're kind of saying, hey, we know that he messed up. Here's your $50,000. Sign here. And now you can't say anything else about it because we paid you off kind of anyway.
Right.
The only reason I'm hesitating, because my knee jerk is like, no. But the only reason I'm hesitating is because if the person took the money and then turns around and still blows your spot up, then that also seems like something that's wrong to do. You know what I mean? So I would feel like that person was in the wrong. If you took the 50,000, then go ahead and go about your way. There's no reason to blow the spot up. Otherwise, you shouldn't have signed the NDA. So I don't know. What do you think? That's the tough question.
Man, I go back and forth, and it's like my knee-jerk reaction is like, no, like, no, nobody should, you know what I'm saying? Like,
we shouldn't be dealing like that.
Yeah, we shouldn't we shouldn't be silencing people in the church. I also wonder, like, like, it's three sides to every story. It's one party side, it's the other side, and it's the truth. And like, what happens like when the other side is like speaking so boldly and freely about something that like maybe like a church doesn't want to address, or maybe it's already been addressed. So like, if this person has already been disciplined, if this person's been removed, if this person has been, if this situation's been handled and resolved in a way, and another person's goal, because they're hurt, their only goal at this point is like to bring down the church. Even though like this church is like, they've gone through remediation in every way possible.
Yeah, church discipline. Gone through that. Gone through counseling. Like that's actually what was said to have happened in Memphis at the church I'm talking about. They're like, we already handled that back then, but she came back forward later, years later, and it was like,
mute your phone real quick. Mute your phone. I'm gonna text you to make sure we're talking about the same church.
Text it to me. I'll confirm.
Because I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same church before I even I just text you. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same church.
That's correct. That's the right church. Yeah.
So like, I think that like, even in that example, this person emailed the pastor, and the pastor chose not to email this person back. Said they were scared, and like when they presented it to the church, they presented it as something that happened that was wrong, but they also emphasized like, the amount of time, the length of time that's passed since it happened, even in the prayer and stuff like that. They continue to emphasize that. So it seemed as if like in that case, like they were trying to justify and trying to minimize what the victim was saying. So it's super interesting, because I had like lots of issues with that. And it's funny because like that church, like, it may be like, maybe just like, I don't know, but like that church is like recently, like, let go of that person, or not recently, pre-COVID, like that person let go of the person involved with it. And also like the pastor ended up stepping down as well, just because like people had issues with it. And now that church actually ended up hiring like this dynamic, we'll just call him Black for the sake of this podcast. But Black pastor, and like they've gone away from, So they've gone away from like the megachurch model, even to where they recently announced they're changing their name. They're going to go to like one location, and stuff like that. And they're going to do more of a focus on church planning, which is super interesting to me. In that, like, in that, like, it sounds good and stuff like that. And like, in relation to NDAs, like, I still don't know what the answer is, to be clear. Like, neither of us know what the answer is. I think like it would be easy to say, like, it would be very easy to say that, like, that there shouldn't be NDAs. And I think like 90% of the time, like, NDAs probably shouldn't take place. But Like,
if
I
they
think
do,
that, like,
they're called an agreement for a reason.
yeah.
And it's, I mean, you agree, they agree. You agree, they agree. So, like, I think my issue
but
is
like,
like,
but like, even with that, like, I don't agree with that. Just because I think that, like, a lot of times, like, people who come from poverty, if you present them with $50,000 or whatever amount of money it is, then, like, you're capitalizing, you're using, like, the church's money that other people tithe for the good of the church, like, to capitalize on somebody's poverty or somebody's
hush money.
Yeah. Like, this.
It's hush
So,
money.
like, even then, like, I don't agree with that, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. I don't agree with the morals of it. The only place I go to, like, the mind of a judge in a courtroom at a certain point in time, though. And it's like, did you sign the NDA, Mr. Victim or Miss Victim? Yes, I did. Right. That's where we take issue. You know, you could have, if you felt like it was wrong to be bribed, you should have turned the bribe down. You know, but that's just me trying to be as fair as possible. At the same time,
and then,
is it okay that the church is bribing people? Absolutely not. The church should not be bribing people. It shouldn't be giving hush money to people in the first place. And I do think it gives a certain amount of undue, like the amount of power that a person has in the future to, like, come back and be like, you know what? I throw my hands up. I'm going to blow the spot up anyway because I don't like this church. I'm still mad. And it's just, I'm in my feelings today. So I'm on one today. So I'm just going to blow the one thing about it is the church is all about forgiveness and redemption. I think there has to be more transparency. Unfortunately, this has just got to be the thing. If a person gets caught in some type of sexual immorality and it's in a church context, or even in some cases, it ain't got to be in a church context. I think that it has to be announced to the church. It has to be told what the steps of discipline are, what the steps of restoration are, and what's been done. That way, nobody can use it against you later. If you're honest, it's open, that nobody can use it against you because you said it. If you try to hide it, you're going to live for the rest of your life worried that someone will one day say something. So really, that's the only answer. You just have to tell people what happened. And that's just it.
Yeah, and that's what it boils down to, honesty. You have to be honest, point blank, period. You have to be honest. You got to be honest about it all. And I think that, like, when it comes to NDAs and stuff like that, I do think it's a little tricky. Like, when it comes to, like, somebody who signed an NDA as a teenager and didn't really know what they were getting themselves into, or, like, directly after hurt and just trying to, like, get rid of that pain to some capacity, make it all go away, period. Like, I think that, like, it does get a little tricky. But, like, it just raises a lot of questions. And I think, like, another thought that I had going into or finishing this movie and kind of thinking about the megachurch model and things like that, is the megachurch model sustainable? Is it good? Is the megachurch model good? And is it sustainable?
I want to say it can be good, but not always. And, one reason I say it can be good is because I'm not going front, bro. A lot of my early Christian walk when I was first born again, after I had left my parents' home, I was in college. A lot of the nourishment that I was getting spiritually was coming from churches that were mega churches. They were either on some type of broadcast or YouTube or somewhere like that. And I was actually feeding on these ministries from a different city, different state. And, like, I attribute a lot of my early growth. Of course, my dad is a pastor, so of course my dad as well. But I attribute some of my early growth to some of these mega churches. So, like, I don't oppose them. I don't think that they're inherently wrong or bad or anything. I think that they can be good. But I do think that every mega church needs to be trying to get as small as possible, because the devil doesn't attack churches. He attacks people. It's not the steeple, it's the people. That's what he wants. He's coming after the bodies. And if your church is too big, people can be drowning in that mud, and this will turn into a giant swimming pool. And you're trying to figure out what's happening to people because they're drowning. Because it's too big. You can't take care of 10,000 people. You're one man. And so I think that's the biggest thing. It's just like, if you're gonna be a mega church, then just try your best to get as small as possible into small groups. Break it down more. Ladies groups, youth groups, men's groups, teenage groups, 8-year-old groups, whatever. Like, get as zoomed in as possible. That's my thoughts. What about you?
Yeah, man. I think that like it's so tricky, right? Because like we could talk about like white evangelical churches and stuff like that as much as we want to, but also like I'm from South Haven. South Haven is like majority white. There's one big black church in South Haven called Brown Baptist. That's like the church in like South Haven. A lot of people go to the church. A lot of people like value the church. A lot of people think they do like good things in the community, and just like do a lot of giving and stuff like that. So like, and I don't know very many scandals that's happening in that church. I'm sure they have happened, right? But like, I don't know of them. Like they definitely haven't been public. I think the worst thing that happened in that church is that, and this is how y'all may remember or know of this church. You may have seen like this dude come down on a harness, coming down. He came
down like on like he was Jesus coming down.
Yeah. So like, and like his thing is illustrations and whatnot. But like for me to say like that church is like inherently bad, I can't necessarily say that. I think that like maybe there should be like, in a perfect world, there would be more black-led churches in that area that people have confidence in. But I also think that like it's powerful to worship with a lot of people who are minorities, who do look like you, and it is a safe space on Sundays. So like, like in that example, I would say, you know what I'm saying? No, it's not. But I think in a lot of ways, like it can be problematic. Like when you consider that, like, like a good chunk of your tithing is going towards an outrageous light bill or something like that. Like it just kind of like it can just like end up being problematic. And like how many people you need to actually, you know what I'm saying? How many people you need to actually run that church? Pastors, executive pastors, youth pastor assistants, executive assistants, secretaries, all these things, all graphics, CPAs, all this stuff, like all these things that you need to run. And honestly, like in a lot of churches, like especially mega churches, like a lot of times, like most of the scandals are from those secondary people. It's not necessarily from like the leader. So like you just kind of like putting yourself in position for like more to go wrong. It is super interesting. And I don't know the answer to the question. Like if somebody said like, do I think mega churches should die? I'd probably say no, but I'd also say that with the caveat of like, there's a sufficient amount of churches that are like giving and doing good things in like all areas, whereas like, like holistically, collectively, we're doing everything right. So like if we have that, then but like that's just not where we are right now.
Like if you're a mega church in the city, I should be able to Google and see in the news some of your charitable giving, or somewhere, not necessarily the news, but on public record somewhere. Like, okay, where are they giving the money? I should be able to see charitable giving, hospitals, neighborhoods, all that type of stuff.
And maybe, but I think that like you should at least be able to hear about it. Like from people in the congregation, like we give to this cause, and like we give to this cause every year.
We should know the names of them, and the amounts.
You said we should or shouldn't?
We should.
Yeah, and I think I could be wrong, but I think like since churches kind of operate as a nonprofit, as far as I know, then like all that stuff should be accessible. So in theory you would be able to find it, but I think that like ultimately like we should be in a place. I wish we were in a place where like there were more flourishing churches and churches actually work together. I think the mega church model encourages division. I think it almost makes you choose like one church over another. We're the social justice church, or we are the church that focuses on adoption, and like this is our thing, and ain't nobody doing it like us. And they may not say them exact words, but the sentiment is shared. And like, and the other church may be like, oh, well, we focus on, you know what I'm saying? Like we're the patriotic church. Like we prioritize this and that and the other. And it's not many churches that are doing it like us. We're combating the culture or whatever.
What they need is mascots. That'll set the game up right there. Hey, this is our mascot, bro. This is Jesus mascot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of funny because Honk for Jesus Slick had a mascot, but
but I think that the ultimate issue in the mega church model is that like these churches, a lot of them are doing good things. A lot of these people have, and a lot of these pastors have done good things in people's lives. If you watch the Mark Driscoll or listen to the Mark Driscoll documentary, you will see that he did a lot of great things in people's lives. And the capacity of people he did it like kind of clouded their vision when corruption came, when scandals happened, when unbiblical things went down. And I think that like in a lot of examples, like you can honestly think back on and just remember that like, or you can just have to consider like, man, if this church fails, then like this organization won't be in the community anymore. If this church fails, then like this group won't have this thing, or these people won't have anywhere else to go because they put all their hope and faith in this church, which is unbiblical. But we know that happens. Or people wouldn't wild out like once there's hypocrisy in their church, which God doesn't promise a perfect church, by the way.
That's right.
So like in that, like, it's like, yeah, but also no. Ultimately, like, I don't think it's like a clear answer in that. I don't think it's a clear answer in that. Of course, Jesus preached to 5,000 people and so on and so forth, but there was not a church. There was a speech. So like, that's not even comparable. You know what I'm saying? So
that's kind of like what MLK did. You know what I'm saying? But Jesus was more fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Billy Graham.
Billy Graham.
Yeah, so like all these folks out here who was speaking in front of all these people and stuff like that, I think that like we have like made it a business model. We treat church more like a business in a lot of ways than we do an actual church. And we tend to value things that like maybe we shouldn't place as much value on in the mega church model. So it's definitely got a lot of issues, and I think that ultimately like the mega churches are the churches that give the church a bad name, like in a lot of ways. When you see the preachers in sneakers and stuff like that, and I'm not here to say like what kind of shoes you should be wearing, but like just make sure you took that up with God. No, it's all I can tell you. I'm gonna also say this, man. You know, Bishop Lamar Jackson. I'm finally gonna say his name. I'm sorry, Bishop Lamar Whitehead up in Brooklyn. Hey man, I'm not gonna front. One that's what it was, $400,000 stole off his person in church. Yeah, jewelry or whatever. He was wearing jewelry and all that stuff.
All his jewelry and watches, $400K.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, you the one we talking about, by the way. All right, and now I won't say that's a mega church, but come on now, that's Honk for Jesus all day. Okay, how you got $400K on in the church in jewelry? What are you doing?
But actually, why do you have $400K worth of jewelry? Period.
Why do you have it anyway? Let's not even get into that. I've been wanting to talk about him, but I'm gonna let him slide because it's about old now. But I think the last thing I'm gonna wrap up with is just like Scripture says, many people should not become teachers because they receive a more strict judgment. All right, you'll be judged more strictly if you're a pastor. So be very aware of that. And I think this movie is a good, reminder that like, hey man, you're playing with what we're playing around with is souls and like salvation and eternal life or death for people. Like, don't be playing around with this, bro. I hope that's what people walked away. Honk for Jesus. That's what I walked away with. Like, don't be playing around with this, bro. This is eternal consequences we're dealing with, And so that's it for me on that, man. What's your final thought?
Yeah. Ultimately, like, if you are in a mega church model, you have a great opportunity to pastor, to lead, to shepherd, either directly or indirectly, either through some kind of delegation. You have a great opportunity to just spread the kingdom. But in that, like, you also have a great opportunity to damage a lot of lives and to damage a lot of people's walks and like to cause a lot of people to have fear and trepidation in returning to the church because of like a model that maybe you thought was the right way to run your church. And when scandals happen, then like you said, like, let's just try to be authentic. The best thing you could do is be authentic now because we may have we would have, I'll say we would have looked at Ravi Zacharias differently if at any point that he publicly repented for his actions, accept some kind of responsibility, and called it what it was, which was scandal. And let's be clear, those women also signed NDAs with him. So so I think that ultimately, like, we need authenticity, we need honesty, we need people to be real and be who you are. Everybody is not called to be a pastor. Some of y'all need to be on YouTube. Some of y'all just need to be on YouTube. Point blank, period. I think that if YouTube was around at the level that it is now, more people will be YouTube personalities. More people would write books. And it may be spiritual and stuff like that, but like, everybody's not called to be a pastor. And just because you have a gift doesn't mean that you should be a pastor. Just because you are great organizationally doesn't mean you need to run a church. There's other things you can do in a community. You can be on a board. You can help the community in other ways, but it doesn't always call for you to be a pastor. And it also doesn't always calls for you to make tons of money. But
that's right.
The mega church will probably
say
YouTube
where it's safe, bro.
Yeah,
stay over there where it's safe, bro.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, is it Mark 3? What is it, Mark 3, Mark 4? That you just quoted? The teachers?
Oh, no, that was James, I think.
James. My fault. I don't know why I said Mark. It's James. James.
Yeah. James. Let me see. That was James 3:1.
3. Yeah, James 3. I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I don't know why I said Mark. But like, in that, like, I know a lot of people have been hurt by mega churches. I know a lot of people have been hurt by the church, period. And ultimately, like we said, like, we should lean upon authenticity. We should lean upon honesty. We should lean upon transparency, to not damage the church any further. And I'll leave with this, is Luke 12:2-3. Nothing is covered up that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered in private rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. So either way, it's going to be out there. So you can either be Ravi Zacharias, or you can be somebody else.
Repentant.
Be repentant. I like that. So in that, man, we hope y'all enjoyed it. Get back at us. If you disagree with something, let us know. We are not perfect. We don't claim to be. We probably made a mistake in here. It is what it is. Sure. And if you show us, and we agree, then we will own it. So yeah. So yeah,
better show it good. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, but with that being said, man, we really hope y'all been enjoying this season. We put a lot of work into this. And man, if you could subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Also leave us 5-star reviews if you agree, and share this episode if you feel like this is something that was helpful to you, and something that may need to be said to some people around you.
There it is. And follow us on Instagram at Unconformed Podcast, and as well as Facebook, Unconformed Podcast. Only thing I have is Facebook, Ryan Thomas, RYONTHOMAS.
Facts. Yep. If you want to find my Instagram, type in my full name. If you don't know it, then I can't help you.
You should.
With facts, it's literally on the cover art. So,
get your phone.
Yeah. So yeah, but with that, man, for Unconformed Podcast, man, season 6, I am Darius Watkins.
I'm Ryan Thomas.
And we out.